The Daytona 500 is the biggest event on NASCAR's calendar, and the drivers will start their engines this weekend. But the league is facing a yellow flag as it fights to boost viewership, attendance, and sponsorship. Can NASCAR get itself back on track? WSJ's Valerie Bauerlein joins us now to discuss. Hi, Valerie. So let's start with sponsorships. Sprint has been NASCAR's top sponsor for 13 years, but is pulling out. Why?
It's a good question. So Sprint has been the Sprint Cup Series for a dozen years. And before that, it was the Winston Cup Series for Winston Cigarettes. So it's been a long history of having this title sponsorship. NASCAR knew for a couple years that they needed to sell it, but it was a little bit tougher sell than anticipated. They ended up selling and announcing a deal in December with Monster Energy, but it was for a lesser amount and lesser duration than they might have hoped.
And now we know NASCAR has an attendance problem as well. We've got a chart to show viewers up on the screen showing that admissions revenue at 22 NASCAR tracks in the U.S. has dropped significantly since 2008. There's the chart there.
That's right, and it's a tough situation for NASCAR because they expanded at the height of their popularity in the late 90s and early 2000s when there was a growing market for people that wanted to go. So they added lots of seats. And then at the downturn and then with a change in people's interest, a little less interest in working on our own cars, driving our own cars, even for millennials, the attendance revenue has been off and falling steadily over the past decade.
And what about TV ratings? Are they seeing declines there as well? That's sort of double trouble, right?
It's tough because TV ratings are hard for sports, right? How many options do we have that we didn't have 10 years ago that are competing for our time? I mean, just thousands. But TV ratings have been off for NASCAR compared to their competitors, like the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, significantly. So viewership for NASCAR is off 45% from its peak a decade ago.
And so, Valerie, why are people losing interest in NASCAR, or why is the core fan base losing interest, it seems?
Well, there's several reasons. We talked a little about the attention span. The car culture has changed. There's been a little bit of a bad luck. Like, NBA boomed when Michael Jordan was having a great couple of seasons, right? Golf was huge when Tiger Woods was at the top of his game. There hasn't been that level of star in NASCAR for a while. But then also, your core NASCAR consumer would drive hundreds of miles to the races, and then with the downturn, they had less expendable income, less ability to go, and then got out of the habit of going and really haven't come back.
Right. So, the journal story mentioned that a lot of the core viewers are either getting older or were hit harder than expected during the downturn and have not made up that income.
That's right. And NASCAR has had a tough time. They have tried to diversify their audience base, which tends to be middle class, male, and white, and Southern. So they've tried very hard to recruit more diverse stars and help Danica Patrick get a larger audience, one of the female stars in NASCAR. But it's been hard.
Right.
And the millennials.
Is she still a draw, though? Do people still come to see Danica? I mean, she's certainly a national presence.
She's a national name, but she's not a popular driver in NASCAR by a long shot. That has been Dale Earnhardt Jr. for 12, 13, 14 years.
Right.
And he had to stay out much of the season last year with concussion issues. He's back this coming Sunday. He's positioned to do really well, but he missed a big part of the season last year.
Now, NASCAR is headed up by the France family, who also founded it. Apparently, there's some division within the family. Is that the case? And how is that affecting the way it's being run?
There's some structural issues there, right? So Brian France runs NASCAR, the sport. So when should the races be? How should the sport be run? What should the rules be? But his sister runs the leading track operation. So she has a vested interest in making sure that her tracks keep a big number of races, that those races are really long, they have hundreds of laps, that they are in the evenings on the weekend or the afternoon on the weekend, not during the middle of the week when people might watch more on TV. So they're sometimes just logistically their priorities can be at odds.
They're not on the same page all the time. All right. Well, it'll be fun to watch the Daytona 500 for sure. I'm sure there'll still be
It
plenty
looks like the weather's going to be great, which is really good for NASCAR.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Valerie Bauerlein, for that.
Thanks for having me.